60 years ago, April 1966 opened on an India that felt caught between its past and an uncertain future. The administration was only 3 months old. Indira Gandhi had just become the nation's first female prime minister, taking office at a time when the leadership transition was still being tested by internal and external pressures. The borders were quiet, but the atmosphere wasn't. The 1965 conflict had ended only months earlier, leaving the country on a permanent war footing and the economy exhausted. In urban coffee houses, the debate wasn't if the peace would hold, but at what cost. The Tashkent Declaration was being picked apart line by students and professionals alike. For a young republic, this combination of new leadership and military exhaustion created a period of profound vulnerability. But while the cities debated politics, the countryside was facing a more basic problem. There wasn't enough food to go around. This was the ship-to-mouth era. For millions, the availability of a daily meal depended entirely on how quickly grain could be unloaded at the docks. Domestic harvests had failed, forcing the government to rely on the United States PL 480 program, which sent millions of tons of wheat just to prevent a full-scale famine. Long convoys of trucks became a common sight, moving sacks of imported grain from the ports to the interior of the country. It was a massive daily effort to keep a nation fed. In April 1966, the most basic element of self-reliance, the ability to grow your own food, was simply missing from the Indian experience. Yet the same people who spent their mornings in ration lines spent their evenings in movie theaters. Inside those halls, the grim reality of the drought was replaced by a massive shift in how the country's heroes were portrayed. The chocolate hero era, defined by soft-featured romantic leads, was starting to lose its grip on the audience's imagination. They were being replaced by the He-Man archetype. In 1966, a rugged Dharmendra starred in Phool Aur Pathar, playing a character who was tough, physical, and capable of taking control of his environment. Parallel to this, Shami Kapoor's high-energy, rhythmic style dominated the musical sequences, bringing a sense of kinetic power to the screen that was absent in the quiet, dusty streets. These characters weren't just entertainment. They offered a vision of strength and vitality that stood in direct contrast to the physical scarcity outside. If you couldn't afford a movie ticket, you found that same energy on the airwaves. Television was still a distant prospect for most households. The radio was the center of the home, often shared by an entire apartment block or a street of shops. Everyone tuned their dials to Radio Ceylon for the Binaka Geet Mala. It was the primary way the country discovered what the rest of the nation was listening to. The voices of Lata Mangeshkar and Muhammad Rafi became a constant presence. Their songs were played in barber shops, tea stalls, and living rooms, creating a shared local environment regardless of the city. At a time when physical resources were being rationed, these broadcasts provided a cultural experience that was available to everyone at the exact same time. This cultural shift was beginning to change the very look of the Indian street. You'd see the traditional sari, which remained the standard, but now it was appearing alongside global trends from the swinging 60s. Among the youth on college campuses, the mod look was taking over. Tighter silhouettes and bolder, more experimental prints were becoming common. Daily life still moved at the pace of the ambassador taxi and the handwritten letter, but the surrounding commerce and billboards were advertising a faster, more modern world. On these streets, a society that was struggling for its next meal was simultaneously adopting the aesthetics and sounds of a global era. When we look at these two worlds, the grain shortages and cinema hits, we see a country using culture to balance its hardships. The shared experience of a radio hit or a movie hero gave people a common ground that went beyond the political tensions and food lines. Looking back 60 years later, April 1966 stands as a moment when India proved it could maintain its identity and spirit even when its most basic needs were at risk. It shows that even under the weight of a national crisis, the impulse to create, to watch, and to listen remained a central part of how the country moved forward. This was brought to you by Stalls or Circle. Thank you for listening.